My question to you is on the word neuroplasticity because it's the most relevant word for every single listener.
Absolutely. Neuroplasticity has become almost a buzzword for growth, for change. People are putting it out there like this is the key to fixing all of your life's problems. Because whoever you are, you can be anybody. So that's the word neuroplasticity is being thrown around like that. I want to bring it back to core neuroscience. So inside the brain, what does neuroplasticity really mean, right? So there are billions of neurons that connect to each other in the brain. That is how the brain talks. The different parts of the brain talk to each other through synapses. Now, the way that the synapses are connected in your brain would be different from the way they're connected in my brain.
Synapses is like circuits.
So, synapse is the connection between one neuron and another neuron. So, there can be a synapse between two neurons. There could be trisynaptic connection, so three neurons connecting together. So, those synapses are like junctions. So, you could think of it as each neuron, if it's like a little town with information, and there are roads connecting each town to another town, then there is a junction at which those two roads meet, and that is the synapse. So at every synapse there is transfer of information. So one neuron will send an electric signal. That signal will travel down that neuron's, it's called axon, which is the road that leaves the neuron, and that axon will end up at a synapse. Now the next neuron will send its own collecting road. That's called as a dendrite. So the axon and the dendrite will talk to each other, and the axon of the first neuron will give that information. It's like a relay system that here, this is what my neuron had to say. And now the second neuron will take that information and take it forward, right? And that's how all the cells in the all the neurons in the brain are connected to each other.
And every human being has their own different map inside their brain, right? All of us have billions of neurons.
Yes.
But in all our minds, they're connected very differently to each other. And that's what creates personality.
Yes, correct. Now, there are certain core neurons, there are certain core neural networks that are similar. For example, how we breathe is not unique to you or me, right? Because we are born with that. As soon as a baby is born, the baby knows how to breathe because the baby's brain is already wired to breathe. Or the neurons that keep the heart beating, those are inherently wired. But as the baby grows, and as the baby starts experiencing the world around, those primary neurons that are deep inside the brain, which is in the limbic system, they start getting coded. Even the emotional circuits are not common to everybody. So, based on what you as an infant went through and you as a child went through, the way that you process information, the way you process emotions are unique to you. This is why in psychology and psychiatry, so many conversations are happening around childhood. That maybe you are the way you are now because of certain things that you went through as a child. And that is reflected in the way that your neurons are connected.
So all the stories of your life are stored inside your brain as a different set of neural networks.
Yes, a different pattern of neural connections. You could say that. So, this is, of course, everything that we say, people have to understand that we are oversimplifying it to a certain level so that we can understand, we can navigate this conversation. But I still feel that this is justified because if you don't oversimplify it to this level, we cannot then discuss the further complexities.
Gotcha. So let's take the example of two different children, pair of twins, maybe separated at birth. So they're identical twins, they're very similar genetically. They have the same inherent personality and genetics. One twin was brought up in a family that had a dog at home, and that twin grows up loving dogs. And the other twin was maybe bit by a dog when he or she was 2 or 3 years old. Therefore, they grew up with a fear of dogs.
Yes.
So this will manifest as two different neural patterns in both the twins' lives.
Yes. Absolutely, very well put. Because what is happening is that, suppose at the age of 10, both the twins will come across a dog. Now, both their brains are seeing the image of a dog, but that image is going inside their brains and activating very different circuits. To the twin that grew up with a dog, that image would be activating networks of pleasure, of companionship, of having fun. Whereas to the other twin, that same image of the dog will be triggering emotions and networks of fear, of pain, of running away, of being scared for their life. So the reaction that both the twins have is very different. Since we started the topic on neuroplasticity, basically in one line, what that means is that, suppose if a certain pattern is already set, if the second twin who's scared of the dog, the pattern of image of a dog leading to fear, if that pattern is already set, neuroplasticity is the process of changing that pattern. So if the image of the dog will lead to fear, what are the sets of things that need to happen for that person, for that brain to now stop reacting out of fear and changing that reaction? So at the biological level, what happens is a neuron will sort of disconnect and reconnect with another network. But this is over a million neurons, because it's not just one neuron talking to each other, because there's multiple circuits. So all those circuits need to change for that expression of fear to change into love.
Now let's speak from the perspective of someone in their late 20s. Why is this conversation even important to them? I personally brought up neuroplasticity because I'm 31 now, and I see, at least in my environment, I see two distinct kinds of people in my own friend circle. There's people who have kind of given up on improving in life, and there's people who are hell-bent on improving. I don't know if you feel something similar. Again, this is like, it's not, obviously not as binary as I'm making it out to be. But roughly speaking, I categorize the people around me in these two categories. I think the people listening to this podcast belong to the category of people driven about the process of self-improvement for the sake of their career and relationships, usually, for giving the family more peace and for giving their own self-worth a boost.
Yeah.
Why is neuroplasticity important to a working professional?
Let's put it this way. If you are looking at your brain, and we already spoke about the limbic system, which is the old primitive part of the brain that deals with emotion. So those are the primitive networks of fear. If I'm scared of something, I will have a fight or flight response, or of attraction. If I want something, let me chase it. This is very primitive. This is very deeply rooted in the brain. If we were still at that level, then we would be animals. But we are not, because evolution did not stop there. Evolution took us forward, and we evolved something called as the prefrontal cortex.
This is what separates us from animals.
Pretty much, yes, because it's not that animals don't have a PFC or prefrontal cortex, but it's not as developed as it is in human beings. So what's the difference? Literally, the only difference between us and animals is that we have a more evolved prefrontal cortex. Otherwise, everything else is pretty much the same. The breathing, the heart rate, the emotional centers, all pretty much the same. The prefrontal cortex is capable of one very, very important thing, which is holding information for long enough to learn from it. It's called working memory. Because of this one talent that the PFC has, we are able to make a mistake and understand that, oh, this is what I did, this is the output, let me try to change it. And hold that information for long enough so that a new solution can come out.
So it's the nucleus of your process of self-improvement inside your body.
You can also put it as the CEO of your brain. So I like that analogy a little better, because it's not like the company was not running. It's not like the industry was not running, but it was stagnant. And you need a new CEO to come in to kind of revitalize everything, to have a long-term vision. Where are we going? What are we doing with this? How do we solve these problems? So the prefrontal cortex is like that CEO. And one of the CEO's necessary qualities is that they should be able to learn. And this is where neuroplasticity comes in, because you all have a predetermined bias. Ki if I do this, this will be the outcome. But neuroplasticity is what will tell you that this may not be the case. Let me try out something else. Let me try out another thing. Let me keep experimenting until I hit my desired outcome. That is what the prefrontal cortex is capable of doing.
Okay, so 3 years ago when we were discussing the same topic, we went with a much more basic explanation. I remember us basically concluding by saying that neuroplasticity is your brain's ability to mold itself through the course of life.
Yeah.
So if you keep reading a new book every month, something will keep getting added to your brain. And look at the growth of your brain as the growth of a tree. And every human being, depending on the books they read, the content they consume, the friends they have, the mentors they have, they're going to have a different structure of their brain. And therefore, one 40-year-old is very different from another 40-year-old. Because the neuroplasticity that's taken place is very different.
Yeah. Neuroplasticity is a phenomenon that keeps happening.
Okay.
Neurons are constantly breaking and forming new patterns. Whether you like it or not, your brain is neuroplastic. Your brain is learning. So this is an important distinction that I need to make here, that you can't make your brain more neuroplastic. You can only decide what are you learning towards. So the lazy person, their brain has learned that laziness is the best approach for them. That's the conflict. They might say that, oh, I want to achieve a lot of things, but if the outcome is that they're just sitting and not doing anything, for some reason, their brain has learned that this is the right approach for my survival.